Hello and welcome to Springboard, your virtual university. My name is Albert Okran, welcoming you on behalf of Team Springboard. This is your most inspirational show and that place where the greatest minds in the world converge. Springboard is brought to you by the Springboard Roadshow Foundation and proudly sponsored by MTN Pulse and the Enterprise Group with media support from the Multimedia Group and the Graphic Communications Group. So today, we continue our conversation about finding yourself. Many of you have reached out to say that this conversation is touching on very critical areas of your life. So I've brought somebody else who will open up another perspective in our quest to find the real you. When all the titles are off, who is the real you? My guest for today has been a long time coming. The 2023 Journalist of the Year, my friend and my brother, Gary L. Smith. Gary, good to see you.
Good to be here.
I guess it's fair to say congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
And it is well deserved and something that we all are very proud of.
Thank you. We thank God for that.
And how many years has it been coming? How many years have you been in the industry?
Started GIJ in 2006. So depending on who is asking, how long have I, because I started practicing shortly before I entered GIJ.
It's about 20 years.
Yeah. So, but I mean, once I graduated, I was fully in the industry as well. So yeah, let's say close to 15. 15 is more like.
The reason I ask is that sometimes there is a sense of impatience among practitioners in fields seeking to be recognized for their efforts and seeking to, as it were, I won't say force it, but force the issue, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
From the perspective of somebody who has been at it for that long, let's start this conversation by talking about the process, the journey of graft, of sticking with what you believe in and working at it.
First of all, I'd say that I fell into this profession by accident. Falling into it. Yeah. After Presec, I mean, I wanted to, continue the sciences because I was a science student. Then while at home, waiting for, results and all that stuff, there was too much time on my hands. So I would go out with friends to go and play video games in the local area. And I'd be there for like 6, 7, 8 hours. My dad was not impressed. So he needed to fill my time with something. I'd always been very studious and I liked reading, but because I had not had enough time to do these things, suddenly I had to fill the time and I was playing a lot of video games and stuff like that. And the reason why he was not happy was because it meant I was not getting the house chores done.
Okay.
He wouldn't have minded if I was playing and I was getting his house chores done, no problem. Because he had always believed in recreation, for the busy mind. But I would go for hours and they would come back and everything is just the way they left in the morning. So he said, nah, this can't continue. So he found a friend who, he knew I liked writing and reading. So a newspaper man who owned a newspaper at the time, is now defunct. And then...
Which of them was it?
It's called Soccer Ghana at the point. It was done by Delali Senai. He's a member of the GFA now. And the El Ete brothers, twins, famously known as the owners of Jokers and Pyramid House, among other things. So that was their newspaper. It was a political newspaper because this was the time Kwesi Nyantakyi, there was going to be the election that would make Kwesi Nyantakyi the GFA president. So this paper was supposed to be a mouthpiece for one of the candidates of that election.
Okay.
And they had a few pages lying around. And so he was a friend of my dad. My dad said, oh, Charlie, this boy likes writing. He said, yeah, you should come around. So I came around. My dad thought it would be just, one of those things. And then I fell in love with it because I was on the Presec editorial board. And so the writing was already in the blood.
Wow.
So when I fell into it, and I liked sports. So, I mean, it was a match made in heaven. And long story short, my dad was not too impressed with the fact that I had changed my mind overnight. That was a long story.
What did he want you to do?
I mean, we had invested a lot in my science education at Presec, so it's due to reason that, because we had a plan, you were continuing in it. So I think it was a natural reaction from a father, right? And I don't blame him for it. So he didn't.
To be fair to him and to all parents having this conversation with their children about careers and so on. I mean, I sat to look at the top 10 trending jobs today, and a number of them did not exist 10 years ago.
Exactly.
So the parents who are taking fixed positions about their children's education don't even know what to be earning the big bucks tomorrow anyway.
Exactly.
So, I mean, both the children and the parents are dealing with a world that is evolving so fast. Nobody can be so sure.
Exactly.
That's the truth.
Exactly. And you see, the background to that fear, and this was on both sides, even my late aunt, who famously said, when I told her this is what I wanted to do, she said, quit. Because she had worked at the GFIC, Ghana Film Industry Corporation, since 1986 or something. It had become TV3. So me, I grew up at TV3. Like, I knew everybody there. And it was the reason why I didn't want to become a journalist, because it didn't look glamorous at the time. And so she said, I've been going with you to this place for years and years. You want to be a journalist, like sports journalist? Ona journalist ne shu pakwa fada.
My goodness.
Exactly. Those were her exact words. She's late now. She died just when things were about to take off for me.
Wow.
So those were her exact. So on her side, I mean, it was a real fear that you are brainy. Why do you want to enter this that does not seem to have interesting prospects for even the best office practitioners in the country? And it was a fair point. So my dad also obviously was not too happy about it, but yeah, I persisted.
What about it caught your attention?
Oh, it was a match made in heaven. I loved writing and I loved sport. So that was it. It was as simple as that.
At that point,
so it was me expressing myself in something so it came naturally to me.
And the economics was not a big consideration.
No. At that point, I had not been oriented. I'll come to that pretty shortly. Because soon after I fell into it, I was to be in contact with back-to-back persons who would quickly change my orientation about what to get out of this profession. And I believe it's the reason why at every point in the last 15 years, I seem to have been consistent and to stand out in a way because of that orientation. But I'll come to that. So it was purely passion in the beginning, and for me to express myself. And this is also important, I think I should mention, to run away from home. Because I had a difficult teenage period because of, my divorce parents. There was a lot of tension and inconsistency. And so journalism was my escape, actually. Writing had always been my escape. Throughout Presec, I kept journals, and as fate will have it, and now that I know better, I know it was God working. That was where I was practicing the whole time. Because I was writing journals every night, writing how my day went.
Did you keep them?
I stopped at a point, because if I had kept them, I would have had such an incredible trove. I kept, and that's another lesson for me. When things became better,
you threw them away.
I stopped keeping the journal. I entered journalism a very angry young man. So every word I wrote was to prove a point. To anybody who doubted me, my father especially. So my initial fuel for going into journalism was anger. And that anger showed in my writing. If I look back at my writing, it was very caustic. But Ghanaians have always liked that kind of sensational, bombastic writing throughout our history.
Why?
Because we don't trust our leaders. And so anybody who is a renegade and attacks at the point, social media was not what it is. But in today's social media age, those who get the most clicks are the most sensational. So that was basically, I wasn't sensational, but my writing was antagonistic. It was insurrectionist.
Wow.
You understand?
Let's talk about pivoting. So you started from there, but you didn't stay there.
No. So Presec had to go to university, then I chose GIJ. I entered GIJ, and my seniors in school quickly realized that, no, this boy has something. So they put me in the school newspaper.
What were we writing about?
So the school newspaper. I was writing sports journalism because I was with my father's friend. And so my work started being published before I entered journalism school. My name was out there, but it wasn't a popular newspaper. So by the time I finished my first semester in GIJ, and I was attending press conferences and things, people in the industry started noticing me. And so I started writing for other newspapers. By the time I completed GIJ, my diploma in GIJ in 2008, people knew me. So by this time as well, a lot of things have happened in 2 years. I've established that I entered journalism a very angry man. At a point, I knew that staying at home was not going to work because they didn't understand my dream. And I knew that it would take too much time to explain to my father where I was going. So I took the option of leaving home. So I left home in September 2007 and went alone. And by that time, I was getting small gigs, which helped me to pay my hostel fees and stuff like that. But I need to point out here that throughout my journalism education, and even years after that, I didn't have a normal life in my 20s. I was working the entire time. And it is the reason why I've never had any tertiary education apart from evening education, because I've been working daytime and going to school in the evening since 2006.
Wow.
So I had time to practice. So throughout my journalism, while my mates I was already an established practitioner. So everything we were doing in school, it was a joke for me. By the time I finished GIJ, the day I finished GIJ, I had 3 people at the gate.
Waiting to employ you?
Yes. I finished GIJ on a Friday. On a Monday, I was working.
Where?
Jan Pofuankra came. And this is when Jan Pofuankra was He saw my stuff and he had just come from the BBC. And he tells me now that he knew, Yao has always been a talent nurturer. There's so many of us from the Yao Academy. So he gave me he sold the best idea to me of all the people, and the following Monday I was with him. So that was it. I had time to practice, but most importantly, probably more than anything, is that throughout the 2 years I was in GIJ and I was working and I didn't do any parties. Throughout the 2 years in GIJ, all the school trips, I never attended one because I did not have time.
Where did that agency emanate from?
I've said it already. I was angry and I needed to prove myself to people. I didn't have time for...
Do you still feel angry?
Oh, no. So the motivations have differed. And because of the topic you've given me, I'll talk about how to pivot when the motivation for why you started has changed.
I feel like drawing a graph.
Yes.
So in the beginning...
Yes. It was anger.
Anger was the...
And to prove to my father, especially.
And then what was the next driver?
The next driver was to do it for my mother.
Wow.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
Mom never gave up, even in the darkest times of my teenage years. When people said whatever they said, that he's going wayward, GIJ is for people who have not done well in school and all those things. My mother stood by me. She believed in what I was doing, even though she didn't really understand it. Charlie, I could school tomorrow. You understand? So, but she believed. She and my aunt. They said, this boy wants to do. And I had proven from class 1 to Presec that I was sharp. So they just took a chance on me. So when I finished GIJ, and it was clear that this was what I was, for want of a better word, born to do. now it was for me to validate her. So when I started working with the Ampofo Ankara, my mother would listen to every show I did.
Wow.
Every single show. So at that point, it was now to do it for her too. The confidence she had done, yes. But in all this, she was advising me, Jan, I can do this, that, because I've always said that I still rely heavily on my mother's advice because my mother has not gone abroad out of Ghana before. But she can give me advice no matter where I am in the world and it is sound.
Is it based on spiritual? Is it intuition? Is it just a certain connection that she has with you? Tell me.
Spiritual, yes, one.
I'm not surprised.
Yes, my mother.
A praying mother is a very...
Yeah. So there's a funny story. I'll come back to what I was saying. There's a funny story. My mother had a shop at Kanda. And I used to go. I helped her. I set the shop up with her. But this was at the time that I had started Gimpa. So I'd go early in the morning in the shop with her. It was a provision shop. Like there were a lot of stuff inside. We'll do the shop and sometimes I would have shows. So I'll go to Metro TV. So I'm like, I'll have my dress in the car and everything. I'll change, go to Metro TV, do a show and come. GTV, do a show and come. Or a radio station or something. So Nanaba Namwa tells me that, and Nanaba was at TV3 at the time, and this shop was at TV3. It was the shop for the staff, and she was running it. So Nanaba tells me that one day she entered the shop, and my mother's back was turned, and she was on something. So she says when she saw my mother, she was like, hey, is she chanting or what? And my mother didn't see her, she was zoned out. So she went this way, and she saw that my mother was praying over the radio. Yeah. I was on the radio and my mother was praying.
Wow.
Yeah. That's the best example that I can give about.
You were live on air, she was live in prayer.
Yeah, she was live in prayer. I can give you, if you give me 1 minute, I can give you 3 examples that straddles the importance of. So my thing is, it's a lot of things. You said spiritual. Yeah, it's a connection I've had with her for a long time as well. But so that's just one example. 2012, I told my mother that there's nothing in Ghana that I've not done. So I need to start conquering Africa. By that time, she had 4 years of experience with my cockiness and my brashness and my, I'll say, but I'll do, And so she said, okay, so what do you want to do? And I said, I want to go for the AFCON in 2012. Then she said, but you are going to Gimpa. And at the time, Gimpa was $1,000 a semester. When I was paying out, she was helping me pay. She said, but yeah, school and, what are you going to do? And I said, well, I have savings. So I'll just use all my savings. I brought my savings and she said, how much do you have? And I mentioned how much. I've forgotten what it was. And she said, so what's the FA, Black Stars were in the group stage. They had not qualified, but we couldn't be sure so that I would not waste money. We waited until the final game. When they qualified, I had a travel and tour on standby to book the thing for me. But immediately they qualified, and I called the travel and tour. They say, oh, the thing is booked. So you can't go on the flights for the round of 16. So my mom said, what will we do? And the travel and tour said, oh, the flight from Accra to Gabon, because it was AFCON 2012, you won't get a direct one. But the same flight will drop people in Lomé. So if you can meet it in Lomé, you will go. And my mom said, what would you do? I'm like 21, or something like that. And I said, Ma, I think I'll go find my way to Lomé and go.
To the flight.
And she said, that's fine. She went into the bank, gave me the rest of the money and said, go. A few years ago, before the World Cup, people might remember this. I went to Qatar and there was a press conference and journalists were asking questions and I asked the FIFA presidents the question about why they discriminate against, when it's Israel, they don't touch them, but when it's other countries. And it was a question nobody wanted to ask. The very moment I was at the press conference, my mother was in the church praying for me because some things had happened. And she had been in the church 6 hours just praying for me at the very moment when I was asking that question.
Have you heard about the book, The Power of a Praying Mom?
Oh yeah, I know. I've read it. So, I mean, my mother has raised the marking scheme for me. It's a problem because I don't know how I can do that for my children. So there's that my mother thing, but there's also the fact that I've been a listening son. You know, I'm not giving myself fans, but I listen to advice. So from my mentors, and I think that it's one quality that I have that has attracted me to. So people find it easy to say, Gary, come, let me advise you as well. So these are some of the dynamics from the very beginning.
Block one in the journey is anger.
Yeah.
Block 2 in the journey is a desire to do it for somebody.
Yeah, for mom.
I'm trying to even generalize it. For somebody that you feel you owe it to.
Yeah.
To do it for. Mm. Did you ever get to the point where now you are doing it for yourself?
Yeah. At every point, you know, I was cognizant because I would be lying because it was nice when people said, I've seen your article in the paper starting at the beginning. Then it came to, oh, I listened to you on radio. It was nice. Then I saw you on TV. It's nice. Hey, I've seen you on BBC. It's nice. So I'll be lying if I said it wasn't for me as well. But in the initial stages, that wasn't really the motivation. Yeah. At a point, I realized that, okay, I mean, if I did this well, it would take me to this level. So yeah.
All right. So when I come back from the break, I'm going to find out from you the critical success factors. Because in all these that we are talking about, for everyone who gets to win, SWAG Journalist of the Year, or to win an award that is celebrated, or to have your work at the very highest level on the international stage, there's probably 999 or many more people who work maybe equally hard.
Or harder.
Yes, but who don't get to stand on top of the mountain. So for the benefit of the many others who are saying, okay, so what does it take? What do you do differently? When I come back from the break, let's explore what would be your counsel to somebody who says, I have a dream and I would like to be heard. I would like to contribute my quota. This is Springboard, your virtual university, and my guest for today, my friend and my brother, Gary L. Smith. Gary and I go quite some way back and we've done different things at different times. He's somebody I'm very immensely proud of. And one thing that I would love to say about Gary and recognition today is that he's one person that I say it's been a long time coming. And he reminds me about patience and resilience, because very often when you are plying your craft and it's not celebrated at the highest level, you tend to give up and think, is the world not seen? But for Gary, I think that there's nothing like what they call the perfect time to be recognized. When we come back from the break, let's talk about what does it take when you are inside the water to explore and get to the top of the mountain. Please don't go away.
Hello? Bye.
Well, everybody's heard about the bird that will fly. Bird is the bird that will fly. Bird is the bird that will fly. Don't you know about the bird? Well, everybody knows that the bird is the bird that will fly. Bird is the bird that will fly.
To consider the implications.
Hello? Everybody knows that the bird is the bird. When a bird.
Whether it's 1924, 2024, or 2124, we've always known that you are driven by your sense of safety and well-being. It is what drives us to see you through from start to finish, from small to big. And in the last 100 years, as you have evolved, so have we also expanded to serve you in many ways. From cradle to grave, with expertise in insurance, life, pensions, properties, health, and for those beautiful, memorable goodbyes. It's 2024, and in all our markets, our pedigree is recognized, our strength respected, our expertise valued, and our solutions sought by all who desire an advantage in life. Experience the time-tested and truly trusted 100 years legacy of Ghana's oldest insurer. Take charge of your future now. Insurance, life, pensions, property management, funeral services, health insurance. Enterprise, your advantage.
This be me, Kobe, aka Kube Boga, KB for short. And this is my sweetheart, Obahima. Today, I get big surprise for her. Charlie, gone are the days I couldn't spoil my girl. Now I'm engaged to the woman of my dreams. Don't just look at my success. To get here, I had to follow the process. Out of nowhere, I lost my job. But I believe in humble beginnings. I got an idea that I knew I could grow. I started from a small setup, then invested in growing my own coconuts. I then grew my product lines. Now, I sell to many supermarkets in the country. Fellow young Ghanaians, trust the process and keep hope alive.
Take advantage of agribusiness through the Ghana Grows program. Ghana Grows, Hope Day.
Welcome back to Springboard, your virtual university, and to this interesting conversation with my friend and brother Gary L. Smith, who we celebrate today as the Journalist of the Year in the sports writing fraternity. Gary has shared some very exciting thoughts about the motivations at different times of his life. We'll explore the thread and see whether it leads in different directions. Springboard is brought to you by the Springboard Roadshow Foundation and proudly sponsored by MTN Ghana and the Enterprise Group with media support from the Multimedia Group and the Graphic Communications Group. Let me share with you your enterprise advantage tip for the day, and today's about Claims 101. What steps should you take after filing an insurance claim? That's important because for many of us, we don't consider what to do and get sometimes confused about the process. So after filing a claim, document your damages with photos, keep your communication records, and follow up promptly. Being organized and proactive can streamline the process and help you receive a fair and timely settlement. And that is your enterprise insurance tip of the day, brought to you by the Enterprise Group. And the number to call, 030-263-4777. Email is info@myenterprisegroup.io. Enterprise is definitely your advantage. If you want to explore how to navigate your way through the agribusiness and ATVET space, and you are a young person aged between 18 and 35, the Ghana Grows Call Center is a place to call for information about opportunities in those sectors. The number to call or WhatsApp is 030-8255-775. Just call and find out what's available for you, and you'll be pleasantly surprised at what you will find out from the Ghana Grows Call Center. Gary, let's go on to the critical success factors. So you say you set out as an angry person, determined to prove a point. I find it very interesting because many people would not talk about anger as a motivation. The first time I heard somebody say that, was it Harry Nata? And I was surprised. I looked at him, he said, oh yeah, very, very angry. And I learned something that day. And you tell me about anger as a motivation. And then you see your motivation changed along the line to a desire to do it for mom.
Yeah.
And that drove you to do it for her to feel the validation. Yeah. And I guess that explains why on the day of the award, you celebrated her so much. And I want to thank you on behalf of my mother for celebrating your mother.
Yeah.
Because my mom is...
I insisted that she couldn't come on stage. She actually couldn't come because the moment was too much for her. She tells me if she had come, she would have collapsed.
Right. Oh, wow.
So I insisted that she come up, but she couldn't. But yeah. So it was, at many points, it was to do it for her. But even that motivation changed.
Right.
soon.
So what was the next motivation?
That one remained constant, but things were happening because you are growing and all that. In the last 6 years, it's been for my children.
Will the grandchildren be next?
I don't know. And I'll explain why for my children. Because my journalism, people will recall, was really bombastic and angry. Like I read more than anybody else. I tried to read more than anybody else so that I would not be caught napping when I was on air. I researched more than I invested into my articulation. I went on with the advice of my seniors to sound original. That's why I have the capacity to sound like a white man, but I've always wanted to speak in my Ghanaian voice.
What's your biggest fear?
My biggest fear is that, like any journalist, you are caught napping. You are caught unprepared. You get your facts wrong, or you generally goof in some way.
And what's your biggest aspiration?
Yeah, so I'm coming to that. So over the period, with my mom being more and more satisfied with where her son has been going over the years, she has wanted more validation in other ways. And she has wanted an award for a long time. It's the first time I'm saying this. So she has wanted me to apply for the GJA Sports Journalist of the Year. You file your work. I've never believed in filing because one of my earliest mentors, Sierra Leonean, name is Durosimi Thomas.
I know him.
Unfortunately for my mother, Durosimi implanted in my head at the very beginning, and that's germinated, and so I'd never file for awards because he said the use of journalism is to do something. You have to find what your personal motivation is. But if you start getting, and that was his opinion, but I took it as mine, that he believes that the best form of awards are those that the people sit down and say, in this year or in this period, you, Alberto Kran's work has stood out, and so we are giving it to you. That's why I have never personally. So I never bowed mouth any of my colleagues. I always congratulate them. Congrats on winning the GJA, but I never file because I don't think that is the
How
thing.
you want it.
But my mother has always wanted that. And so sometimes she'll be watching on TV over the years. Ofili, and she was, so that's why this meant so much to me, this swag one, because I just wanted to, so the award is with her. It's with her, it's in her house.
Wow.
Yeah. Because if it's in my house, I feel, thank you. My biggest fear is complacency.
Why?
If you're complacent, you're finished. You're finished.
I ask these questions.
Yeah.
I want to understand the journey.
Yes.
I want to understand the different things that drive you at different stages in your life, because without deliberately telling me so, I can see at every point in time there's a different thing that is pushing you. But I can also see some commonalities driving all the way through.
So
and I'm trying to explore it almost like a science.
Yeah, sure.
So for you, the biggest fear is
complacency.
ever having to find yourself, wake up and you are caught flat-footed.
Because somewhere in 2010, 2011, one of my seniors, I can't remember who, because I had become one of the new kids on the block. And so if you wanted one of the young cats at the time, one of the young techs, you would come to me. And I was on TV, I was on radio, everybody wanted me to be on their show. Inevitably, I became a bit cocky. And so one of the seniors said, I must have passed the comment or something. And one of my seniors called me and said, you will one day become like us. You would enter your 30s and 40s. You would have children. You may not have as much time as you do now then to do the research as detailed as you do it. So instead of being cocky, you probably want to learn how we adapt, survive.
Wow.
Yeah. I cannot understate the importance of mentors in my career.
At the point where that statement was made, did you understand it?
I did.
Now?
I did, yes. Obviously, experience, not but I understood because I had 2 or 3 mentors. If I mention, Durosimi was one of my first mentors. Do you know how lucky you have to be? Duro was like the best in Africa.
I know.
Yes. So I'm glad you know him because when I mention his name, a lot of people.
No, I mean,
he was so good that the Sierra Leonean, was the BBC correspondent for Ghana.
Right.
That was how good he was. And I was lucky that he took me under his wing and trained me.
What was the biggest lesson you learned from him?
Him. I'll tell you the biggest thing he did for me that changed my career till date. While everybody was going in this direction, he told me, Gary, the newspaper and the thing you are doing, in 5 or 10 years, it will be gone as relevance. As relevance. There's something called social media that's coming and website work. I'll start introducing you to it, but you would have to do the heavy lifting yourself. To encourage me to do that, it was he who first recommended me to do small gigs for the BBC. So by the time I finished journalism school, he was giving me, when they sent him reports to do, he would do the reports, but if they had to do vox pops,
Give you back pass.
he'll give me the back pass. And no, not just that. This is the interesting part. He'll give me the recorder, show me how to use it, and say, go to Osu, because you get a diverse range of people. And when I come, the £10 that they'll give him for the vox pop, he'll give it to me.
Wow.
Bro, do you know?
At that stage,
Bro!
At that stage in your life,
Bro!
it was life-changing.
No, man.
Help me to appreciate the dance between the mentor's hand-holding and the heavy lifting.
Yeah, so
Because,
like he said,
some people say, listen, may God grant me a destiny
helper.
or destiny helper. What is it?
We can have a separate show on that. I don't really agree on that.
What's the dance between what Durosimi did for you and the heavy lifting part of the work? So
because Durosimi was from a war-torn country, he knew exactly what to do with somebody like me. He knew when it was too much spoon feeding. So I'd come to where he was and he would say, take a trotro from home and meet me at what was busy internet. And he'll be there working. Then me, I'll be there. I no chop. I've not eaten. And he'll order jollof and things. You mind me, do the work. 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 So he taught me the value of earning things. So that was the dynamic. But by the time I did work, then he said, I think you are ready to write for this paper. So he introduced me to BBC Focus on Africa, and I did my first work for them. Then he said, I think you now get the drift of what you are doing. Now, I am teaching you this. You have to do far more. But you see, he was a mentor who knew far more than I did because Durosimi spoke 5 languages. Wow. So if I'm sitting here in 2024 today, I don't even speak a second language. And that is my other motivation now. That I haven't reached. I am so far from reaching. Durosimi was so good that in his house there was a satellite. He would watch the 6 o'clock news in French, the 7 o'clock news in Portuguese, the 8 o'clock news in Arabic. Do you understand? So if I tell you that I have not reached, and that is where I want to get to, it is the function of the mentors that I have had. So that's for me is the dynamic too. And that is how I have trained all the people that have come under me. That there is a point to which but you have to let go for their own sake. It's like you have a child. Now that I have children, I know. You can afford a toffee, but sometimes you have to say no.
Wow. So
that they learn the value that in this world, you don't get everything you want. Wow. And you have to be patient for it sometimes.
Let me explore the critical success factors at the highest level.
Yeah.
Because you've gone to places, FIFA, the World Cup, at the very highest level. What must because sometimes a door can open to you at the highest level, and the same speed that you got there, you come crashing down because you did one thing wrong, said one thing. What must one keep in mind in those very, very high circles?
For me, funny enough, those things are the very same things you need at the beginning. Discipline. Because the more doors are open to you, the less you have to say.
Explain.
The higher you go, the bigger the stakes become. So you have to learn to shut up.
Shut up?
Yes.
Explain.
Diplomats famously say as much with their words as they say with their silence. The best diplomats in history are those who knew when to keep quiet as much as knew when to talk. We agree?
Yeah.
Exactly. I have found in my little experience that as the higher you go, the cooler it becomes. The higher you go, what we call tact, yes, that's the word, in everyday part, tact and knowing when to speak and when to shut up is probably one of the biggest things. And then, of course, because I'm Ghanaian, I'll add timeousness. You know, if I were German, I won't say it because it will be a cultural thing. So, critical success factors, when to keep quiet and when to speak, networking the right way. I did not know there were forms of networking. And I don't know how to explain this, but it is not everywhere that you go and say, hi, my name is Gary. So you hear that in a lot of motivational. My personal experience is that it's not everywhere you do, hi, my name is Gary. No. There are some places you look at the crowd and you can clearly tell that this person is best if you told this person to tell this person that you are here. There is a place, and it's a dance of death. So sometimes you will get it wrong. Hi, I'm Gary. I mean, it will happen. Yeah. So I understand those who say that if you don't try, if you don't stick you won't win the lottery. So I understand. But there are places, you learn from experience that there are places where you have to wait till everything is finished and then you approach the person.
So understanding the nuances, when to shut up, and then discipline, obviously, because when people say, do this for me, they want it done. And then communication. I'm tempted not to say any of them is the biggest, the most important, because I think that they are all complementary. Equally important.
They are all equally important. Communication. I find that the higher I have gone, the more honest I have become.
When I say explain,
yes, I know.
Because I want to understand.
Yes, the honest
thinking behind what may seem to be obvious.
Yes. You've asked me to do something for you. You said I should submit it by 5 o'clock. If I can't do it by 5 o'clock, it is my duty to tell you. I don't need for it to be 5:01 for you to say, Gary, have you done the thing for me? Then I'll say no. Among other things. Like, can you do it? No. Can you do it? Yes, but. So, when I was writing Asamajan's book, I think I've said this before, I didn't touch the script for 6 months.
Why?
Albert, I had writer's block. You are a writer, so you know. When I looked at it, was like a spirit. When I looked at the book, then I'll get angry. And this was Asamajan's book. It was the biggest thing to happen in my career. So I was asking God that, Charlie, what's up? I couldn't touch the book for 6 months.
Then when you started?
And when I started.
Non-stop.
So because of time, how did I break that writer's block? And then when I say that, I'll link to the final critical success factor, which I didn't believe in 5 years ago, but I believe now. I couldn't touch the book for, like I said, 6 months. Then one day, a company said we should do one of these influencing things, and that we were to go to Dansoman to do the shoot with the guys, Twins Don't Beg, the guys. So when we went to their studio in Dansoman, we were waiting. Because of the various times that we all could meet, the various people on the shoots, the best time to meet there to do the shoots was at 11 p.m. So we all got there at 11 p.m. We were sitting down. One person was doing his shoot, and I just chanced on a book there on the floor. There were several. So I just said, what that? And it was a book by Nigerian socialite, Toke Makinwa, about her life story. Now, if you know Toke Makinwa's story, she's gone from grace to grass to grace. Like she's been there.
Seen it all.
She's been abused. Like what? Pressed down, shaking together, running over. She's been all over the place. And the book was the simplest book. Do you know that by the time I took the book, to the time it was time for my shoot, I had finished reading the book. I had not been able to read a book cover to cover for 8 months. By the time I finished that book, if I could, I would have run away from that studio and gone to I was itching. And when I opened my laptop to write Jan's book, it didn't stop till we finished.
So you talk about the power of inspiration.
Yes.
And you're linking it to...
And I'm linking it to one factor, that's grace.
I was going to come to that.
I'm telling you today, as a converted person, I've traced my story from the beginning. So I saw nice things very early in my career. I became very cocky because I trusted in my ability. I was very good at what I was doing. Before I learned the rudiments of research in school, I was doing it naturally. I was writing for the best publications in the world by 22. The financial returns were not, but in terms of profile, it was there. My seniors of my previous generation were not having those things. So my mother was struggling with my cockiness because, she had to. And it's been there my whole life.
Right.
Because I've always been blessed with that. So one of my biggest, until fairly recently, was what they say in Ghana, patapa. It's been one of my, because I've been good at things for a long time, and things that people have found difficult to do have been second nature to me for a long time. So I discounted. Even my good friend Francis Doku, and I'm glad we are having this because I'll show him this again. We used to have debates on Facebook, and Francis Doku always said that there was nothing like a self-made man. And 10 years ago, he and me would go back and forth.
And what was your position then?
That they are self-made men, and that there are people who did it themselves. And he always said, there's nobody in this world.
And what's your position now?
Yeah. Now, I'm telling you as a product of grace that I cannot discount the role of grace, of unmerited favor, because the higher I've gone, you see, things have come full circle from the guy who told me that if I were you, I wouldn't be cocky, but I will learn how we did it. I'm now there. I have kids. I'm dedicated to being there for my kids, which means that what the younger generation can do, I won't have time to watch football matches 90 minutes. And yet, 2023, which was for me my slowest year in sports journalism in 6 or 7 years, was the year I was acclaimed, and nobody, I want to emphasize, nobody said I didn't deserve it. I know how I work. I'm telling you that in 2023, I had just come from an almost near-death experience in Qatar. You know this story.
Yes, very, very
So
well.
2023, I was resting. It is in that year that they found me worthy.
And you said that was grace at work.
And I'm telling you that from a cocky person who had traveled everywhere, when I walked in places, I walk in South Africa and people know my name. I walk in places, I walked in Kenya at age 23 or something, and people were queuing because of my writing, because I was writing for SuperSport at the time. I was on fire. The kind of recognition that grace gives you, no amount of your work can give you. The amount of elevation that grace will give you, because you just understand that there are things in this world that are cosmic. That grace will take your 2 hours of work, elevate it to a place where somebody who has worked 200 hours will not get.
What kind of person are you today as a result of these discoveries?
I'm a more patient man. When my people from my past 10 years ago see me now, they cannot believe. Even at Joy FM, at Multimedia, I took some of that anger there. where at the time the decision had to be made for, who to lead the Joy Sports team. When I told my mother that one of the reasons why they said they gave me the job was because I was a patient person, she laughed. But by then, a lot of things had happened. Some are very personal and people will not want. But by then, you see, I had been taken through the mail. I had been broken. My anger this same anger that fueled me, because it had gone unchecked for so long, I had been broken. I have been disgraced in places that you will not believe because of my anger. My anger has disgraced me in places that thankfully there was no social media and no cameras. So these are very personal stories. But out of those, I've become a more patient man. And out of that patience, I have won things, gotten jobs, gotten favors, opened doors that I would never ever have. And so I choose to attribute it to grace. People can do what they want. So I've given you the success factors and whatnot, but I am telling you that, you see, I can work with you, and I have to mention him, my colleague George Addo. We have gone through these processes together.
I just admire the two of you and the way you work.
And George will tell you that he will put in his best, but when we finish, we will pray on it and leave it. And we will trust that when we leave it after giving in our best, you can't touch us.
There are two things I must do before I sign off on this show.
Sure.
In fact, three. The first is to say thank you to you on a very personal note for grooming my son, Oreku. I want to publicly say thank you to you for every investment you made in his life, Oreku Ampofu.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I need to do this here to say thank you for those hours on the phone, night, talking, investing in him, and posterity will speak very kindly to both yourself and to George for who he is today. Thank you very much.
Welcome. And I have always told him that he only got that from me because, like I've said, I got people who did even more for me. People who paid things. I didn't pay much for Reku because, people paid things for me to access things. So it's for me. I just paid it for it. And I always told him that one day I need him to also pay it forward.
Very, very important.
Yeah.
The second thing is to ask you whether you will write, because you are a good storyteller. Listen, I've seen people, and of late, people are paying top dollar to learn storytelling. And I'm like, storytelling? Ghanaians, we are storytellers, but all over the world, storytelling has become such a huge attribute that people are paying to learn. But you tell it almost naturally. You are in control when you're telling a story. You space yourself out and you build the blocks.
Yeah.
Are you planning to write? Your own story, not
my own story.
Yeah. Your own, write your own material.
Yeah, eventually I would have to. I owe it to a lot of people to write it.
I think you should.
No, I would.
think you should. Not just once. I think you should write. I think you should add writing to the cocktail of things you do.
Yes, it is. So, I mean
books, write books.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's part of the plan.
Yeah.
So long term, radio is not my forte. TV is not my forte. Writing is my first love. So things are coming full circle. I needed to pursue radio to achieve an objective. I needed to pursue TV to achieve an objective. But I am coming back to writing to fulfill my purpose.
I can relate to that.
Yes. So writing is something that, and by the grace of God, I'm taking it so seriously that I am altering my life to accommodate the fulfillment of that purpose.
From the pastoral point of view, I'll tell you what you even see as those times when you had the wrong picture or the wrong perspectives all come together to make you Gary L. Smith.
Yeah.
Take any of those chapters out of your life
and I'm not the person.
Story won't be nice.
Yeah.
The story won't be beautiful.
Yeah.
And they won't be told as well as you've done it in the past. I want to say a big thank you to you, Gary L. Smith, for making time here on Springboard at Virtual University.
I'm trusting. The only thing I was praying for when I was coming was that, God will give me utterance. And I've come to understand utterance as meaning that.
Maybe let's sign off by looking into camera and speaking to somebody else who's maybe at a different stage in their life. Whenever you interview somebody on the mountaintop, I I can understand somebody who says, wow, one day me too. And for the benefit of that person, whether in sports, in medicine, in the expression of any talent in writing, just for the benefit of that person, look into camera and give them something to take away, something to chew on about how they can also find themselves and live a fulfilled life.
Hello. The first thing I would say is that finding our purpose is probably the most important thing that we have to do on this earth. And because of my personal story, I believe grace, faith, luck, whatever you choose to call it, is something we must all hope for in order to find that purpose. Because when you find that purpose, it changes you. It makes every other distraction a distraction. And for me, chasing luck, grace should be topmost for all of us, because then all our work has meaning. But while you chase all that, my personal experience tells me that consistency, from the worldly point of view, consistency never goes to waste. I am a product of consistency. I work as hard every day as I did when I started as a very angry young journalist. My motivations have changed, but the consistency has not. These days, my consistency shows itself in my work, but also in other things, because family is here and all that. And finally, what I would say is, I believe as a people, because most of this is going to go to Ghanaians and Black Africans, is that we should collaborate more. I will die on this hill that collaboration will take us further, and that wanting it all alone and thinking that the pie is only for us to share won't take us anywhere. And so please, the pie is big enough for all of us to share. Let's collaborate to make the pie bigger so that we can reap better. Thank you.
So on the note of grace, on the note of consistency, and on the note of collaboration, I draw down the curtain on this amazing conversation with Gary. Gary, I had great expectations, but you exceeded them. Thank you so much for the time.
We thank God.
And let's do this again on a different
I would love to. I would love to. I've always admired what you do. And one day I would have maybe not Springboard Roadshow, but, to a platform for people to share something. I'm not sure
Absolutely.
I'm not sure
Absolutely. Thank you so much once again. So this has been another enthralling edition of Springboard, your virtual university with Gary L. Smith, the swag sports journalist of the year for the year 2023. But for me, comfort, and for us as a family, a friend, a brother, and part of the multimedia family for years, and somebody who's always in our corner. So I trust that we can have this conversation, continue it online as we debate the points he has raised, especially about the changing motivations as we build our careers, but the consistency that doesn't change, no matter what the motivation is. Something in this conversation is meant for you, especially you. My name is Albert Okran, thanking you on behalf of Team Springboard and our sponsors, MTN Ghana and the Enterprise Group, and our media partners, the Multimedia Group and the Graphic Communications Group. My name is Albert, saying God bless you, and God bless you.
He's a turn around. Turn around.